Wisdom. Wow, the wisest of the wise may err. The memory is the mother of all wisdom. Knowledge shrinks as wisdom grows, knowledge comes and wisdom lingers. Don't even try to become just be. Wisdom begins in the end, wisest to comprehend the whole. Wisdom comes by disillusionment. Wisdom never lies. Wisdom sails with wind and time. Wisdom has never made a backward, but learning has. Never does nature say one thing and wisdom another. Knowledge is marvelous, but wisdom is even better. Pain is the doorway to wisdom and to truth. No man was ever wise by chance. Discipline is wisdom and vice versa. It is wiser to find out than to suppose. Wisdom is knowledge which has become a part of one's being. Kindness is wisdom. Cunning is but the low mimic of wisdom. Not by age, but by capacity is wisdom acquired. Wisdom begins in wonder. The beginning of wisdom is to desire it. Wisdom outweighs any wealth. The wise are those who know the self. Caution is the eldest child of wisdom. Great wisdom is generous. Petty wisdom is contagious. Uplifting, beautiful words of wisdom. Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. The sum of human wisdom is not contained in any one language, but no single language is capable of expressing all forms and degrees of human comprehension. As one grows older, one becomes wiser and more foolish, more helpful than all the wisdom is one draught of simple human pity that will not forsake us. Wisdom is the oneness of mind that guides and permeated all things. Because in the school of the spirit, man learns wisdom through humility, knowledge by forgetting, how to speak by silence, how to live by dying. Always keep your mind as bright and clear as the white sky, the great ocean and the highest peak, empty of all thoughts. Always keep your body filled with light and heat. Fill yourself with the power of wisdom and enlightenment. True wisdom listens more, talks less, and can get along with all types of people. It is the province of knowledge to speak, and it's the privilege of wisdom to listen. Wisdom is the abstract of the past, but beauty is the promise of the future. A poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom. Funny words of wisdom that will make you smile. It is profitable thing if one is wise to seem foolish. The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself a fool. Mixing one's wines may be a mistake, but old and new wisdom mix admirably. Back of every mistaken venture and defeat is the laughter of wisdom if you listen. Silence is foolish if we are wise, but wise if we are foolish. Wise kings generally have wise counselors, and he must be wise man himself who's capable of distinguishing one. Wisdom is the reward to get for a lifetime of listening when you have preferred to talk. It is human nature to think wisely and act foolishly. If a million people say a foolish thing, it is still a foolish thing. The wisdom of the crowd is the most ridiculous statement I've heard in my life. Kisses are a better faith than wisdom. Who is their infinite wisdom discreet with little leaked uniforms? By why? Certainly not the mother. I'm thinking of taking a fifth wife. Why not? Solomon had 1,000 wives, and he's a synonym for wisdom. In seeking wisdom, thou art wise. In imagining that thou hast attended, thou art a fool. It is not white hair that engenders wisdom. He was a wise man who invented beer. I tweet, therefore, my entire life has shrunk to 140 characters chunks of instinctive and pre-digested gnomic wisdom and swearing. Grey hairs are signs of wisdom if you hold your tongue to speak, and they are all but hairs, as the young man Rabindranath Tagore said this. To keep your secret is wisdom, but to expect others to keep it is folly. If suffering brings wisdom, I would wish to be less wise. Look, wise say nothing and grunt. His speech was given to conceal thought. Quote against wisdom. I prefer the folly of enthusiasm to the indifference of wisdom. The most important lesson of new labor is this. Every time we made a progress, we did it by challenging the conventional wisdom. Sometimes one likes foolish people for their folly better than wise people for their wisdom. All human wisdom works and has worries and grief as reward. Music is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. Learning and wisdom are superfluities. The surface glitter merely, but in the heart, that is the seat of the all power. The art of storytelling is reaching its end because the epic side of truth wisdom is dying out. the profound and Zen quotes. Mhm. I would rather be a man of paradoxes than a man of prejudices. To be Zen in the world of madman is in itself madness. The wise man belongs to all countries, for the home of great soul is the whole world. Cleverness is like the lens. With a very sharp focus, wisdom is more like a wide angle lens. Before you react, think before you spend, earn before you criticize, wait before you quit, try. It is unwise to be too sure of one's own wisdom. It is healthy to be reminded that the strongest might weaken and the wisest might err. Just as the fire is covered with smoke and mirror is obscured by dust, just as the embryo rests deep within the womb, wisdom is hidden by selfish desire. Out of compassion, I destroyed the darkness. Out of compassion, I destroyed the darkness of their ignorance from within them. I light the lamp of wisdom and dispel all darkness from their lives. The clouds may drop down, titles and stays and wealth may seek us, but wisdom must be sought. The first point of wisdom is to discern that which is false. The second is to know that which is true. We will be known forever by the track we live. Silence is a sleep that nourishes wisdom. Has fortune dealt you some bad cards, then let wisdom make you a good gamester. We give advice, but we cannot give the wisdom to profit by it. The function of wisdom is to discriminate between the good and the evil. Genius and refined resembles a flash of lightning, but wisdom is like the sun. Talent is like the marksman who hits a target without which others cannot reach. Genius is like a marksman who hits the target, which others cannot even see. Contemplation and wisdom are highest achievements, and man is not only at home with them, is not totally at home with them. Real wisdom is not the knowledge of everything, but the knowledge of which things in life are necessary, which are less necessary, and which are completely unnecessary to know. What we call wisdom is a result of the wisdom of past ages. Our best institutions are like young trees growing up on the roots of the old trunks that have crumbled away. It's wisdom to recognize necessity when all other courses have been weighed, though as folly it may appear to those who cling to false hope. We can be knowledgeable with other men's knowledge, but we cannot be wise with other men's wisdom. The small wisdom is like water in a grass, clear, transparent, pure. The great wisdom is like the water in the sea, dark, mysterious, impenetrable. We can't really digest food unless there is hunger, so we can't really assimilate spiritual wisdom unless we feel the need for it. Innocence dwells with wisdom but never in ignorance. If you have the insight of non-self, if you have the insight of impermanence, you should make that insight into a concentration that will keep you alive throughout the day. Then what you say, what you think, and what you do will then be in the light of that wisdom, and you will avoid mistakes and creating suffering. Counsel women in the fabric of real life of wisdom. It requires wisdom to understand wisdom. The music is nothing if the audience is deaf. Wisdom is the knowledge of good and evil, not the strength which is between the two. The end of wisdom is the dream high enough to lose the dream in the seeking of it, in the wind, laughter, or falling. Wisdom here half is applause. Wisdom about life and love. Whose wise isn't love, love most, say least. There's a beauty into wisdom and experience that cannot be faked. It is impossible to be measured without having leveled. In wisdom gathered over time, I have found that every experience is a form of exploration. Wise people, even though all laws are abolished, would still lead the same life. A loving heart is the truest wisdom. Pudding is like wisdom, partly a natural given, partly an accumulation of experience. You can't be wise and in love at the same time. There's a wisdom of the head, wisdom of the heart. If we have built on the fragile cornerstones of human wisdom, pride and conditional love, things may look good for a while, but a weak foundation causes collapse when storms hit. Wisdom acquisition is a moral duty. It's not something you do because just to advance in life. Wisdom acquisition is a moral duty as a corollary to that position, which is very important. It means that you are hooked for lifetime learning, and without lifetime learning, your people are not going to do very well. You are not going to be very far in life based on what you already know. You're going to advance in life by what you learn after you leave here. Mm-hmm. The good and the wise lead quiet lives. It is necessary to take what is common as our guide, however, though the logic is universal. the many lives as if each individual has his own private wisdom. Though wisdom is common, yet the many live as if they had the wisdom of their own. Without wisdom, the future has no meaning, no valuable purpose. Wisdom is that apprehension of heavenly things to which the spirit rises through love. The scientist aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than science gathers wisdom. Learning sleeps and snores in library, but wisdom is everywhere, wide awake on tiptoe. Wisdom stands as the turn on the road and calls upon us publicly, but we consider it false and despise its entrance. Wisdom does not show itself so much in the present as in life. In our firmness of mind and mastery of appetite, it teaches us to do as well as talk and to make our actions and verses all of a color. The sublimity of wisdom is to do things living which are to be desired when dying. He who is in love is wise and is becoming wiser sees newly every time he looks at the object beloved, drawn from it with his eyes and his mind with those virtues which it possesses. Love is the wisdom of the fool and the folly of the wise. Practical wisdom is only to be learned in a school of experience. Percepts and instruction are useful so far as they go, but without the discipline of real life, they remain of the nature of theory only. The experience gathered from books, though often valuable, is but the nature of learning, whereas the experience gained from actual life is one of the nature of wisdom. Happiness? There is the difference between happiness and wisdom. He that thinks himself the happiest man really is so, but he that thinks himself the wisest is generally the greatest fool. The weak have remedies, the wise have joy. Superior wisdom is superior bliss. The truest greatness lies in being kind, the truest wisdom in a happy mind. Here is a wise man who does not grieve for the things that he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. It is the nature of the wise to resist pleasure, but the foolish to be a slave to them. It is impossible to live a pleasant life without living wisely and well and justly. It is impossible to live wisely and well and justly without living a pleasant life. There is a difference between happiness and wisdom. He that thinks himself the happiest man is really so, but he that thinks himself the wisest is generally the greatest fool. Be happy, it's one way of being wise. There's no happiness, there's no wisdom. The wise are cheerful and content with their lot of life. We humans have lost the wisdom of genuinely resting and relaxing. We worry too much. We don't allow our bodies to heal, and we don't allow our minds and hearts to heal. It's not wise, but the beginning of wisdom is there. It's like relaxing into an acceptance of things. Let us be sad and content in our little corner, meek and gentle like them. This is the wisdom of life. Complexity is enemy of execution. Nothing is more simple than greatness. Indeed, to be simple is to be great. People don't need more stuff, they need more wisdom. The more complicated a skill is to be simple. Simplicity will stand out while complexity will get lost in the crowd. Possession, outward success, publicity, luxury, to me these have always been contemptible. I believe that a simple and unassuming manner of life is the best for everyone, the best for both the body and the mind. Nature is pleased with simplicity, the nature is no dummy. It is always the simple that produces the marvelous. Simplicity is ultimately a matter of focus. To be satisfied with little is the greatest wisdom, and he that increases his riches increases his cares. But a contented mind is a hidden treasure, and trouble find it not. I do believe in simplicity. It is astonishing as well as sad. How many trivial affairs, even the wisest thing he must attend to in a day, how singular an affair. He thinks he must own when the mathematician would solve a difficult problem. He first frees the equation of all encumbrances and reduces it to its simplest term. So simplify the problems of life, distinguish the necessary and the real. Probe the earth to see where your main roots run. Truth is ever to be found in the simplicity and not in the multiplicity and confusion of things. Every morning was a cheerful invitation to make my life of equal simplicity, and I may say innocence with nature herself. As you simplify your life, the law of the universe will be simple. Solitude will not be solitude. Poverty will not be poverty, nor weakness weakness. Besides the noble art of getting things done, there's no noble art of living things, and then the wisdom of life consists in elimination of non-essentials, in character, in manner, in style, in all things. The supreme excellence is simplicity. Or rather, let us be more simple and less vain. The greatest ideas are the simplest lines of wisdom on God, religion, and prayers. Earthly wisdom is doing what comes naturally. Godly wisdom is doing what the Holy Spirit compels us to do. Science investigates, religion interprets. Science gives man knowledge, which is the power. Religion gives man wisdom, which is control. If we believe in God at all, we must surely ascribe to Him the perfection of wisdom and perfection of goodness. We are then forced to conceive of Him, however strange it may sound to those who believe, not only without seeing, but also without thinking, as think without will, because He must always necessarily pursue the course which is wisest and best. The divine wisdom has given us prayer, not as a means whereby to obtain the good things of earth, but as a means whereby we learn to do without them. Not as a means whereby we escape evil, but as a means whereby we become strong to meet it. God the Father, the supreme architect, had already built his cosmic home. We behold the most sacred temple of his Godhead by the laws of his mysterious wisdom. The marvel of Bhagavad Gita is its truly beautiful revelation of its life wisdom, which inhabits philosophy to blossom into religion. There is no such thing as human wisdom, all is the providence of God. To light one candle to God and another to the devil is the principle of wisdom. The fear of the Lord is indeed the beginning of wisdom. The consciousness of sin is the straight pathway to heaven. As you walk in God's divine wisdom, you will surely begin to see the greater measure of victory and good success in your life. The best way to obtain truth and wisdom is not to ask for books, but to go to God in prayer and obtain divine teaching. Then just man loves God for nothing, neither for this nor for that, and if God gave him wisdom or anything else, he had to give except himself. The just man would not look at him, nor would be in haste be to his death, for he wants nothing, seeks nothing, and has no reason for doing anything. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Your task is to build the better world. God said. I answered, how? This world is such a large, vast place, and there's nothing I can do that seems to matter. But God, in all his wisdom, said, just build a better you. The harder you ask for something, the work for it, the better your chances of getting it. The question is, are you working hard and asking for it? Wisdom goes on education and knowledge. A man may learn wisdom even from a fool. Doubt is the origin of wisdom. The wisdom of the wise and experience of the ages are perpetuated by quotations. The doors of wisdom are never shut. Uncertainty is the root of all progress and all growth. We cannot learn anything without first not knowing something. The doorstep to the temple of wisdom is the knowledge of our own ignorance. Passive acceptance of a teacher's wisdom is easy to most boys and girls. It involves no effort of independent thought. It seems rational because the teacher knows more than his pupils. It is moreover the way to win the favor of the teacher unless he is very exceptional man. Yet the habit of passive acceptance is a disastrous one in a little life. It causes man to seek and to accept a leader and to accept as a leader whoever establishes that position. Not engaging in ignorance is wisdom. The stupidity of people comes from having an answer for everything. The wisdom of a novel comes from having a question for everything. There's no knowledge, no light, no wisdom that you are in possession of, but what you have received of it from some source. Much of the wisdom of one age is the folly of the next. Wisdom is the right use of knowledge. To know it is to be wise, is not to be wise. Many men know a great deal and are all the greater fools for it. There is no fool so great as a fool as a knowing fool. But to know how to use knowledge is to have wisdom. There is as much wisdom in listening as there is in speaking, and that goes for all relationships, not just romantic ones. No one ever found wisdom without also being a fool. A prudent questions in one half of wisdom. A hunger for facile wisdom is the root of all false philosophy. Books are the ever-burning lamps of accumulated wisdom. The art of knowing is knowing what to ignore. Abundance of knowledge does not teach men to be wise. You can practice to attain knowledge, but you can't practice to attain wisdom. Knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. One can find it, live it, be fortified by it, do wonders through it, but one cannot communicate and teach it. Wisdom is not wisdom when it is derived from books alone. When you are used to being prepared to reject conventional wisdom, it leaves you open to learn more. An educator is not merely a giver of information. He is one who points the way to wisdom, to truth. Truth is far more important than the teacher. The search for truth is religion. The truth is of no country, of no creed, it is not to be found in any temple, church, or mosque without the search for truth. Society soon decays. The teacher who's indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your mind. Science may be learned by rote, but wisdom not. If I don't have wisdom, I can't teach you. I can only teach you ignorance. There are many things of which a wise man mightn't wish to be ignorant. Wisdom quotes on respect, justice, and politics. The virtue of justice consists in moderation as regulated by wisdom. A monarchy conducted with infinite wisdom and infinite benevolence is the most perfect of all possible governments. Democracy is a pathetic belief in the collective wisdom of individual ignorance. If you don't understand yourself, you don't understand anybody. I learned some valuable lessons about the legislative process, the importance of bipartisan cooperation, and the wisdom of taking small steps to get a big job done. Government is a contrivance of human wisdom to provide for human wants. People have the right to expect that these wants will be provided by his wisdom. History is filled with tragic examples of wars that results from diplomatic impasse, whether in our local communities or in international relations. The skilled use of our communicative capacities to negotiate and resolve differences is the first evidence of human wisdom. The wisdom and experience of the older people is the resource of inestimable worth. Recognizing and treasuring the contributions of older people is essential to the long-term flourishing of any society. What if, for starters, instead of constantly trying to prove how much smarter we are than others, we look for the intelligence in what others do? We learned in World War II that no single nation holds a monopoly on wisdom, morality, or right to power, but that we must fight for the weak and promote democracy. I look forward to a great future for America, a future in which our country will match its military strength with our moral restraint, its wealth with our wisdom, its power with our purpose. In the frank expression of conflicting opinions lies the greatest promise of wisdom in governmental action. I hope our wisdom will grow with our power and teach us that the less we use our power, the greater it will be. Wisdom sings on time, aging, patience, and waiting. Patience is a companion of wisdom. All human wisdom is summed up in two words: wait and hope. To wisdom belongs the intellectual apprehension of high things external, to knowledge the rational apprehension of things temporal. Both in thought and in feeling, even though time be real, to realize the unimportance of time is the gate of wisdom. Every man is a damn fool for at least 5 minutes every day. Wisdom consists in not exceeding the limit. Wisdom acquired with the passage of time is a useless gift unless you share it. Wisdom too often never comes, and so one ought not to reject it merely because it comes late. Wisdom not only gains but once got retains. Morality comes with the sad wisdom of age when the sense of curiosity has withered. The older I grow, the more I distrust this familiar doctrine that age brings wisdom. A man begins cutting his wisdom teeth the first time he bites off more than he can chew. You know how to grow old is the master work of wisdom and one of the most difficult chapters in the great art of living. No wise man ever wished to be younger. Time is a companion that goes with us on a journey. It reminds us to cherish each moment because it will never come back again. But what we leave behind is not as important as how we have lived. At 60, I know little more about wisdom than I did at 30, but I know a great deal more about folly. The wisdom of age don't stop walking. Time ripens all things. No man is born wise. 9/10 of wisdom is being wise in time. The hours of folly are measured by the clock, but the wisdom no clock can measure. The wise man does not grow old but ripens. Wisdom sings on success, failures, mistakes, courage, doubts, and fear. Wisdom comes only through suffering. The biggest challenge after success is shutting up about it. He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, and in our own despair against our will comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God. Better be wise by the misfortunes of others than by your own. True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man double doubt often and changes his mind. The fool is obstinate and doubt not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. Experience is the only prophecy of wise men. Without courage, wisdom bears no fruit. Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I will move the earth. Fear is the main source of superstition and one of the main sources of cruelty. To conquer fear is the beginning of wisdom. Action should culminate in wisdom. Strength and wisdom are not opposing values. Even when you have doubts, take that step. Take chances. Mistakes are never a failure. They can be turned into wisdom. Doubt is the vestibule through which all must pass before they can enter into the temple of wisdom. I don't think you can come into your wisdom until you have made mistakes of your own skin and felt them in reality of your own life. If I'm a fool, it is at least a doubting one, and I envy no one the certainty of his self-approved wisdom. How prone to doubt, how cautious are the wise. Death never takes the wise man by surprise. He is always ready to go. He that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. Experience comprises illusions lost rather than wisdom gained. Where fear is present, wisdom cannot be. Wow, beautiful. The most important aspect of my personality as far as determining my success goes has been my questioning conventional wisdom, doubting experts, and questioning authority. While that can be painful in your relationships with your parents and teachers, it's enormously useful in life. In life, all good things come hard, but wisdom is the hardest to come by. We become wiser by adversity. Prosperity destroys our appreciation of the right. A wise man never loses anything if he has himself. To make no mistakes is not the power of man, but from their errors and mistakes, the wise and good learn wisdom for the future. Wisdom thoroughly learned will never be forgotten. A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wise man. It is costly wisdom that is bought by experience. All men make mistakes, and only wise men learn from their mistakes. Words of wisdom about business. Truth builds trust. A wise person decides slowly but abides by these decisions. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great. If you are not willing to risk the usual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. If you really look closely, most overnight successes took a long time. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. You have to be burning with an idea or a problem or the wrong that you want is right to right. If you are not passionate enough from the start, you will never stick it out. In the midst of chores, there is also opportunity. Done is better than perfect. Persistence, perfection, patience, power, priority. You're passionate. It keeps you sane. To build a company was the CEO's job. Sometimes you have to stand up against the conventional wisdom. Ignore the conventional wisdom. If everybody else is doing it one way, there is a great chance you can find your niche by going in exactly opposite direction. The older I get, more wisdom I find in the ancient rule of taking all things first, a process which often reduces the most complex human problems to manageable proportion. We are drowning in information which is starving for wisdom. The world henceforth will be run by synthesizers, people able to put together the right information at the right time, think critically about it, and make important choices wisely. The wisest men follow their own direction. Few people have the wisdom to prefer the criticism that would do them good to the praise that deceives them. We have been doing things that are contrary, the things that people tell us won't work from the beginning. In fact, the only way to get ahead is to find errors in conventional wisdom, thinking well to be wise, planning well wiser, doing well wisest, and best of all. The wise man is he who knows the relative value of things. If you command wisely, you will be obeyed cheerfully. Wisdom thinks on money. Frugality includes all the other virtues. Not he who has much is rich, but he who gives much. Investment in knowledge pays the best interest. That man is richest whose pleasures are cheapest. Formal education will make you living. Self-education will make you a fortune. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Happiness is not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement, in the thrill of creative effort. He who loses money loses much. He who loses a friend loses much more. He who loses faith loses all. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life. The wisdom of man never yet contrived a system of taxation that would operate with perfect equality. Don't gain the world and lose your soul. Wisdom is better than silver or gold. Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget. I'll tell you what you value. One of the greatest pieces of economic wisdom is to know which you do not know. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Money often costs too much. The greatest wisdom, wisest people who ever lived. Albert Einstein. Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. A clever person solves a problem, a wise person avoids it. Aristotle. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. The aim of the wise is not to secure pleasure. The wise man does not expose himself needlessly to danger, since there are few things for which he cares sufficiently, but he is willing, in great crisis, to give even his life, knowing that under certain conditions it's not worthwhile to live. Marcus. Their soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. To the wise, life is a problem, to the fool, solution. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Death smiles at us all, but all a man can do is smile back. Bruce Lee. Having no limitation as limitation. A wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a foolish can learn from a wise answer. In order to control myself, I must learn to accept myself by going with and not against my nature. I cannot tell you, only help you to explore yourself, nothing more. Buddha. The mind is everything what you think you become. Meditation brings wisdom. Lack of meditation leaves ignorance. Know well what leads you forward and what holds you back, and choose the path that leads to wisdom. Peace comes from within, do not seek it without. Confucius. They must often change who would be constant in happiness of wisdom. By 3 methods, we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. Wisdom, compassion, and courage are the 3 universally recognized moral qualities of man. Wow, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.